Alright, how's it going, book nerds? Today we are going to be going over Stranger Things from start to finish. My overall opinion on the whole entire thing is what we're going to cover today. It was a phenomenal series, so let's go ahead and get into this. With the plot being a group of kids that are friends that absolutely love to play D&D kind of fall into a D&D session almost. Not an isekai because it is very well explained in the universe of how everything is coming to be. Um, there is a middle ground between a pure fantasy type world and the real world, and they blend it together very, very nicely while keeping the outside world kind of unaware of what's going on in the overarching scheme. The plot to me was honestly, it was phenomenal. It was a top top tier top tier plot. The plot twists were incredible. How they ended each season was very, very well done. How they ended the actual series, like the end, I thought was very well done. They got me to cry, they got me to laugh, they got me to smile, they got me to love characters, they got me to hate characters, and everything in between. It really was. Stranger Things was the full package. It was absolutely incredible. So I will be giving the plot of this one a 10 out of 10. In the opening, which my kid actually rewatched the first season this morning, so I can confidently say that I am pretty sure how the first season goes, and I thought it was very well done as well. It did a very good job introducing Elle and the rest of the kids, and it had a good introduction to Hop. Joyce was a badass right off the bat. Right off the bat, that woman was badass. Straight to it. Right whenever she realized that Will was missing, she felt guilty right away, and then she got to action. And that woman was about action all the way through until the very end of the season, and to the very end of the series. That woman was just pulling stuff out of the bag. It was just, yeah, you got a very good sense of this is going to be well worth my time from the first season. And the kids did a very good job acting, even though they were incredibly young at the time. But being able to have them so young and then grow while the series grew was just incredible. And I think it pulled it together so well at the end because you had so much emotion riding on these characters by the end of it. And I don't know how many people would have stuck through everything if season one wasn't so well done and so tight. So I'm gonna give the ending also a 9 out of 10. I think they could have given Will a little bit more scenes, but that's also a trend that I kind of think they play on throughout the series. Like there's a part where they split up and they're not so much Hawkins anymore, and there's this offside character that, I kid you not, gets more lines and more screen time than Will does, or at least it felt that way in that season. And I'm just like, Will is right there, and he's like a main character, and this is just a friend of a main character, and I don't know. But that's the only thing that I'll say about the opening is that I think they could have given Will a little bit more lines with how important and how centered around the story that they made him on the opening. But still, I give the opening a 9 out of 10 because it was very good at drawing everybody in, building that fan base immediately. Even though they knew with kind of how Netflix works that it would be a long gap before the next season, they just did an incredible job of pulling everybody in on season one to where they knew you were coming back for season two. They just knew it. Pacing. I I think the pacing was kind of flawless. It was. I would have to do this to test it, but I would be willing to say if you started right now from season one and you watched just all the way straight through, watching a season a week until you finish the whole entire series, I think you would agree that the pacing is some of the best pacing done in a TV series out of anything. It's better than. Yeah, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some big TV shows out there that I've seen that were hits that this pacing wise was way better than a good amount of them. I would say that the pacing deserves a 9 out of 10 as well. I think there were times that they added some stuff in that might be filler considerably, even though I know it's not. I know it's all canon, but it was just stuff that was just fluff. It was just there to be there. I don't really feel like it necessarily fleshed out the characters any. So there were some times that the pacing was a little off due to that, but it was near perfect. The pacing was just so well done and it was so good, and the story is very tight. The retcons they retcon some things definitely. Some things that were noticeable, not slightly noticeable, very noticeable. But still, I'll give the pacing a 9 out of 10 because I thought it was incredibly paced. I thought it was tight. I thought the story beat went from beat to beat, and I thought it kept you riding that roller coaster almost as if you weren't even stopping to let other people come on. Despite the long gaps in season releases, that I understand, but you can only do so much. Now we're going to get to the characters, which I'm going to come straight out and say it. Characters are a 10 out of 10. I will explain it, but I will not argue with anybody about that disagrees with me. I think all of the characters were so well done, and the actors and actresses did such a good job portraying who they were and what they were supposed to be and what they meant to the story, from Eddie to Max's brother to the parents to the kids to Vecna to just everybody, even to introducing Holly in the last season with the new actress. Just phenomenal. Holly being one of my favorite characters by the end of it. She just did such a good job in this last season. I just can't even say anything better about her. Derek, the kid that played Derek, was also absolutely incredible. Like I said, the characters, all of them, especially the main group of kids, just the characters were just incredibly well written and perfectly portrayed and acted on screen to just make just a beautiful masterpiece of art. I just, yeah, the characters are what make you cry and what make you laugh and what really bring you into this story and really grabbed your hearts over these seasons, and just watching them grow as characters and their personalities and their ups and downs. It's seriously, it is some of the best that I've ever seen in TV. The characters were just absolutely amazing from start to finish, and all of them that get introduced that are hinted at being part of the main cast are all phenomenal. The good guys and the bad guys, I just can't say anything more about them. They're just absolutely incredible. Writing. Problem is that they have a lot of plot holes but they wrapped it up very, very nicely. This story is very well done. It is enticing all the way through. It's entertaining all the way through. The characters are great. The pacing is great. Like I said, the opening is great. All of that stuff was phenomenal, but there's a lot of plot holes and a lot of retcons, which is fine because they pulled it all together, and a lot of the retcons and plot holes aren't necessarily things that are going to make people that upset, but it does make it to where I'm going to put the writing at an 8 out of 10 because although, like I said, everything is true, story phenomenal, pacing phenomenal, characters phenomenal, plot phenomenal, a lot of retcons. A lot of retcons, a lot of plot holes. Can't overlook that, so it's an 8 out of 10, but it's still phenomenally well written. The power system, it was very light but entertaining. It was kind of sloppy compared to other things. It was like, have you ever seen that show on History Channel, Drunk History, where they get famous people drunk and then they tell the history? It was like if a famous person was really, really intoxicated and was trying to explain to somebody how the Force worked so that person can go make a movie, and that person then went and made Stranger Things, and how their powers work was a very drunk telling of the Force. That is kind of how I will say the power system is. It was my least favorite part about all of it. I did not think that it was incredibly well done, but the rest of it was so good and so tight that it didn't need to be. But yeah, the power system is the worst part for me, especially like I said, thinking about its counterparts and other things that are talked about with it and other things that are in this genre. I just think the power system was very weak. It wasn't very well explained. It wasn't even very well used. There's times when Elle was a much younger kid, wherever she does things that are significantly more incredible than what she's able to do at peak power in the season finale. So it's just, yeah, I'm not going to try and give too many spoilers, but I will. The power system to me was the weakest part, and the only thing that I will say was a bad part about the series, so I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10. I was not too amazed by the power system or the magic system or whatever you want to call it. I didn't like it that much. But the ending, the ending I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed the last season a whole lot. I got to watch it with my kid, so that was also a good bonding experience, and we both cried and laughed through that last season. It was absolutely incredible. We were hyping each other up, waiting for the season to come out, and then waiting for the second part of the season and for the finale to come out. It was just such a good time for us. It was good to speculate in between there about who was going to die, who wasn't going to die, hoping nobody died, crying whenever they made somebody think that they were going to die. It was a real roller coaster of just an absolute smile on your face, hands in the air, screaming the whole time. It was amazing. The ending and how they wrapped up the season, even with all the plot holes that were left, was one of the better endings that I have seen with something that has this many stories going on and interacting and interweaving with each other, and how they were able to end it is just it really really was so tight. So I have to give the last season and the ending for me a 10 out of 10. I thought it was incredible. It's one of my favorite endings. I really really hope that people don't get too caught up on certain things that happened in the last season that people didn't want. And just look at the overarching season and just understand that it was a beautiful ending to an overall masterpiece. And I thought the ending by itself standing was a masterpiece, especially if you consider how hard it is to wrap up a story of this magnitude. I have to give I have to give all of them respect. The actors, the writers, the directors, just everybody that was a part of this. I think the last season was perfect. Just perfect. It was absolutely incredible. That's why I'm giving the ending a 10 out of 10. Moving on to the all and all. What did I think overall of everything? I have to give it a 9 out of 10. It was not my absolute favorite thing ever, but it was very high up there, and it's something that I am almost positive I will rewatch again, and it's something that I will always keep in my mind and dear to my heart as just an absolute wonderful experience. So, like I said, we are going to be giving Stranger Things, all in all, from start to finish, a 9 out of 10, and a bravo, a golf clap to everybody that was a part of it. It was one hell of a ride. Thank you guys for the experience and just all the years, the hard work, the sweat and tears that went into it, the tears that came out of us from watching it. It's something that people will definitely talk about and remember for a long time. That is something I'm almost positive of. Okay, so a little bit of spoilers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, if you don't want any spoilers, click off. So, with the power system, some of the stuff that I didn't like was Elle's able to, in one season, rip Demogorgons apart like it's absolutely nothing. Just rip them to shreds. And then in some of the fourth season and fifth season, she struggles with certain things like that. There's and then there's parts where she walks in and she can break all the necks and everybody of all the army people without even getting into the room. But there's other times whenever she struggles with one person. And like I said, the power system was just real flaky to me. It was one of the things that I did not enjoy. Um, the way that they ended Callie's story, I think, was very well done. I think the character was getting a lot of hate with how they did the beginning of the last season. But how they finished her story was very well done, and then how they ended up wrapping it up with Elle and saving Elle. Oh man, it made me and my kid both cry, and then put smiles on our faces when we realized that Elle was still alive. And the fact that Mike knew or got a heavy faith and belief that Elle was still alive was just, some of the best happy ending type story endings that I've ever seen. It was absolutely incredible. Um, the way that they did the separate endings from the Nancy and Steve and Jonathan and Robin, how they had their ending, and then it also did the little side thing to where it showed that Steve and Dustin were going to constantly meet up, but they did a separate little ending for Dustin, Mike, Will, Max, and then playing their D&D game, and also Caleb. Oh man, what's Caleb's name? And Lucas. I love how they did their separate ending, and then with Mike walking up the stairs, and he gets to see Hallie and Derek and their group of friends playing the D&D, so that like, hey, the next generation is gonna have just as good of a time, and we carry this on, and although all the trauma and everything that came from this, look at the good and look at the bonding we did as people, and it was just some of the callbacks to Eddie with Dustin is just absolutely incredible, and how he did Eddie's callback to the principal and giving him the middle finger and grabbing the diploma was just grade A. It was grade A, man. It was absolutely just. It was so good. It was so good. The ending was so good. The start was so good. The middle seasons were so good. The drama part of it was good. The action part of it was good. The mystery, the thrill. This will go down as one of the better stories of all time, and I really do believe that. If anybody has not started or hasn't finished Stranger Things yet, I think that you should install a seatbelt into your couch, buckle in, and just enjoy the ride, because it takes you on a ride, and it's one of the ones that I will never regret going on. So that's my review of Stranger Things. Once again, I'm Thomas with Read, Review, Recommend, and thank you guys for joining me on this review of Stranger Things, and I hope you guys keep watching, keep reading, keep taking these stories, and enjoying these worlds. You guys have a wonderful day.